All right, it's March 6, 2024, and that means there was an Xbox Partner Showcase today. So for this showcase, it was just exclusively kind of third-party games that are partnering with Xbox, probably for their marketing, because we know some of these games are coming to PlayStation, and I believe Switch as well. But for this, we saw some interesting titles, and I think there's a lot here to unpack that could be very good, but there's a couple things that I'm personally not interested in. I don't know how many people are interested in them. So we'll talk about it. Hey, I'm Bobby here with Direct Gaming, and we're going to be talking about the Microsoft Partner Showcase today. If you're brand new here and you enjoy this video, leave us a like and subscribe. It's a great way to support what we do here, and we do appreciate it. And if you don't like this video, leave us a dislike and leave us a comment letting us know what we can do better in the future. So let's start off with Unknown 9 Awakening. I actually thought that this one was a really cool look in terms of the aesthetic, the world, and the kind of gameplay looked like it could be intriguing. However, it looked very, very scripted, which is kind of okay, but it doesn't give you a real impression of how gameplay can look. That's something to just keep in mind. And I'd actually rather like a theatrical or like a 3D trailer, without any gameplay in it, than have a scripted, very forced gameplay look. At least it'll give you an idea until they can get something more official out. And this one just didn't do that. So for me, I'm kind of hesitantly excited about this one, but overall it could be good. It actually looks fantastic, but just something to keep in mind that scripted gameplay is something that detracts a little bit for me personally. I don't know, let me know down in the comments what you think, because that personally, that part didn't sell it, but the rest of it did kind of sell me on it. So I'm up on the fence, and obviously it's very likely it's going to be on Game Pass at some point, if not immediately. So you can check it out that way if you're a Game Pass subscriber like me. Now the next one is Sleight of Hand, and this one looked super, super cool. This is what I was talking about with having a 3D trailer as opposed to a gameplay trailer. This one didn't have any gameplay, but kind of gave us an idea. Now for me, this looked a lot like an Arcane title. Kind of like that Dishonored style, very Victorian English look, right? But gameplay maybe like Thief, like stealthy sim, right? They say, and I think that's a lot of fun because stealth sims are a really, really good time, especially being able to figure out all the different ways you might be able to get through a level. That part's always fun to me, being as creative as you possibly can with a sim game. This one overall looks like it could be a lot of fun if they are delivering that experience, something like an old school Arcane title. And I'm hoping that's what we see from Sleight of Hand. The next one was The Alters, and this one looked very, very interesting. You're playing as a character, and the character has a bunch of clones or alters, what have you. They all kind of have to work together aboard their ship to get off this planet. And they all have very different personalities, and all those personalities end up clashing, and you kind of have to manage not only the escape, but the kind of personalities clashing between those alters. And I think this could be a very unique story. I actually like the aesthetic too, because it reminds me very much of Returnal, which I thought was a fantastically neat game. I was never able to get too deep into it, but Returnal looks incredible, and I'm hoping this one, if it's got a really solid story behind it and everything, this one could be a really cool one. Next up was Creatures of Ava, and I thought this looked a lot like Tales of Kenzera Zao, which they talked about later, so we'll talk about that in a little bit here. But this looked really cool. Kind of was like you're playing, I think it's Ava. I don't know if Ava's a planet or if it's the character. We'll say Ava's the character, and she plays this kind of Pied Piper role where she's leading the creatures around. I assume, you're trying to help them to safety and things like that. But it looks absolutely gorgeous. I love this kind of art style, very bright, colorful. Everything's popping, right? Highlights everywhere. I think this is a very cool thing that they're bringing to the table. And again, I don't know if this is Xbox exclusive or not, but if you have Game Pass, hopefully you can get that one. Now the next one is Roblox Griefville X Chucky. This seemed really out of place personally. I know Roblox isn't super complicated or anything, but this looked like they're advertising a PS3 game, in a next gen Xbox showcase. I thought it was a weird choice, but obviously there's probably money tied up in there. Roblox giving them money to promote and things like that. I'm personally not interested in this. I don't play Roblox, but if you play Roblox, let me know what you think about this. Is this something you're going to be checking out? Or, I don't know. It looks like kind of a horror shooter game, third person, right? Maybe it's like Dead by Daylight. with Chucky, you know. I don't know too much about Griefville, if that's the like a sub game in Roblox, but that was that. Next up was a Sinking City 2, and this one kind of looked really weird. It looked kind of like a psychological horror game. Again, not too much gameplay here. I don't think there was any gameplay in this one, but again, gives you kind of an idea, and I'm okay with that. A lot of these haven't had release dates, so yeah, that's why I haven't really been mentioning them, but they do say that they are coming, you know, generally in 2024, which I think is big. Now, here's the big one for all you Square Enix fans on Xbox who have been asking for Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy 16. Well, you got Final Fantasy 14, which is probably the biggest Final Fantasy game of the last decade. That's finally coming out on March 21st. I think this is a big win for Xbox players. Remember that there's a huge trial for that game that is free, and it's something like 200 hours of the content. After that, you do have to pay for the subscription, and, you know, Square Enix is, you know, trying to work with Xbox and stuff, but don't expect this one to pop up as a part of your Game Pass subscription, like some things we'll talk about later. Final Fantasy 14 is well worth the subscription price from what I've heard. I still haven't started it out myself, but that is something I want to get to this year. Currently playing Rebirth, and, you know, I'm loving that, and I loved 16, so I'm hoping that getting into 14, I'm going to enjoy that as well. But this is a big get for you if you're on Xbox. It's one of the biggest MMOs that we've seen in the last decade. And so I would definitely check it out if you're a Final Fantasy fan or if you're an MMO fan. Next up was S.T.A.L.K.E.R, the original trilogy kind of remake, remaster, coming out for Xbox. And that trilogy looks like it's looking pretty nice. Now, this is actually coming out on PlayStation as well, I believe. I think I just saw, right before recording, saw a listing go up on PlayStation. And S.T.A.L.K.E.R has been on Xbox for a long time, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember ever hearing about it coming out on PlayStation. If I'm mistaken, let me know down in the comments. But yeah, these are some really, really classic shooters. So you want to make sure that if you're a fan of shooters and you're looking forward to S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 coming out, you get on this. And I believe this one is on Game Pass. These shooters, I haven't ever played them personally, but from what I've heard, they are incredible, especially like for the time when they originally came out. Next up was Monster Jam Showdown. Here's another one that I personally was not too interested in. Monster trucks, motocross, that's not my thing. I think I went to a monster truck show with my grandfather once, and I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that again. He loved it, but I'm not a person for that kind of thing. And racing games are not, you know, you probably heard me say it, racing games are not my cup of tea unless it's, you know, really silly like Burnout arcade racers, right? I'm okay with those for a little bit, but even those I kind of just turn off pretty quick. After that, it was a big get for Game Pass. Persona 3 Reloaded Expansion Pass. This is coming to Game Pass, so I think this is a huge win if you're a Game Pass owner, because Game Pass almost never gets like expansions, DLC. They don't get that as part of Game Pass. So if Sega is willing to give this as part of Game Pass, that relationship between Sega and Xbox is getting pretty cozy. Right? Now, we know Sega said just a few months ago they don't want to sell, but that might be a thing that happens in the future with Sega and Xbox, seeing how close they're getting. And something like this really showing that they are working together consistently, and Sega has faith in Game Pass, right? Unlike some other brands that we've seen. So it really does depend on the developer, the studio, right? Whether or not they feel like Game Pass is the thing for them. And apparently Sega really does. Now, I don't know if this is increasing sales of Persona or what, but like I said, if you're on Game Pass and you like Persona, that Reloaded Expansion Pass coming to Game Pass is absolutely huge. There's not much more to say about it. I know the Persona games will have like 100 hours of content each minimum, right? So make sure that you're checking that out if you're into JRPGs and stuff. Next up was the first Berserker Kazan, and this actually looked really cool. It kind of looked like a Bloodborne God of War Japanese fantasy thing, and I thought it was really rad looking, kind of gothic horror-y, stuff like that. And, you know, I get a sense from it is going to be kind of like a beat 'em up. We'll have to see how deep the combat is, but definitely the first look at this was really cool to see. One of the things I did notice was like the animation of the character running was exactly like Kratos in God of War 2018, just that like hunched over running with both hands. That was really cool, and I'm hoping this kind of lives up to that standard. That would be really rad to see for Xbox. Next up was Tales of Kenzera. Kenzera Zao, excuse me. And this one is one that they had a demo at Steam Next Fest, and Talon played it. I played it as well. We both thought it was fantastic. I played it for like 15 minutes, but you know, I went through a couple battles and just, you know, tried out the movement and talent. I think he said he got the whole way through the thing, but overall, this was absolutely a gorgeous game, and this is looking like a super fun thing. They went into a little more details about everything. They said how every weapon, every ability can be used in combat and in traversal, which I think is super cool. And this is looking like a Metroidvania, which I love personally. I just saw this up on pre-order for PlayStation for, I think, $18, so I might just grab that because it's looking like it's going to be excellent when it drops. So this is something that could be really, really cool. I also, again, like the art style, like this and Creatures of Ava, that art style, they're very similar, very bright, kind of cartoony, not taking themselves like, or not making themselves to be too photorealistic, things like that. I think that's important nowadays because photorealism obviously is costing way too much money, as we've seen through those Insomniac leaks. Then we get Frostpunk 2. Frostpunk 2, I didn't play the first Frostpunk, but I believe it's like a city builder sim kind of thing, if I'm not mistaken. And this looks like it's continuing that legacy. Looks great. Yeah, there's not really much more to say about that. It looking like just a sequel to Frostpunk. So if you are a fan of Frostpunk, Frostpunk 2 is coming sooner than later. And then finally, they close out the show with what is it? Kunitsu-gami, Path of the Goddess. Now this one looked really, really great. It reminded me a lot of Kena in terms of like the world, right? Not the characters, but the world. Reminded me a lot of Kena Bridge of Spirits. If you haven't played that, that is a fantastic game. It's a lot of that kind of like feudal or ancient like Japan kind of look about everything, but this one is a little bit more fantastical looking, which I think is really cool. There's a lot more like decorations, and then there's the weird effects of like the hands coming up from the ground as you're running through, and there's a daytime and there's a nighttime. And overall, I would say this looks like a really interesting one. And again, I'm hoping all of these come to Game Pass, or at least most of them. I think S.T.A.L.K.E.R is the one that definitely wasn't. We'll have to see with like Tales of Kenzera and other ones, but hopefully we can see these come out and be strong showings for Xbox. One of the great things about this show, and one of the things I think that Sony could really learn from Xbox, is there's a lot of variety here. A lot of variety. And I absolutely love to see that. Now, whether or not these games end up being really great, you know, it remains to be seen. But the variety on offer here is fantastic. And if you can get all that through Game Pass, that is a compelling offer, right? Even if you're just using Game Pass on your phone, right? I use Game Pass on my Steam Deck, on my phone, on my computer. And it's cool. Like, I don't have an Xbox, but I can play all these games anywhere I want to using that technology. You know, obviously not going to play Final Fantasy 7, but, or excuse me, Final Fantasy 14. Sorry, I've been playing Rebirth. Not going to be playing Final Fantasy 14 on my phone, but the rest of the stuff, if it's on Game Pass, then you're going to have access to it anywhere you go, which is really cool. And again, having that wide variety of everything to work with, like having Persona 3, and then Frostpunk 2, and then Tales of Kenzera, and then the Altars, and then Sleight of Hand. Like, just those games alone, it's just this wild swing of variety that you're not getting for PlayStation right now. You know, it's kind of getting closer to Nintendo and just that scope of games that's being presented. So if you are a fan of gaming, I think this is a very exciting showcase for you. You know, there's going to be people out there who goes like, oh, why isn't it Starfield DLC? Stuff like that. This is not for that. This is to show you, hey, this is the companies we're working for. These are a bunch of different types of games that you're going to have able to play soon. But what did you think of the showcase? Anything in here that particularly interested you? Like I said, for me, like Tales of Kenzera, that's one. Kunitsu-gami, that's one. Creatures of Ava, that's one. Altars is one. Sleight of Hand is one. Absolutely. The other ones I'm still kind of interested in, but those are like top of my list. And that's like a third of the show, right? So personally, I thought this was great, but let us know what you think down below in the comments. And yeah, thank you so much for watching today. Again, I'm Bobby here with Direct Gaming, and I hope to see you soon. You guys take care and have a great day.